Me now, I'm delighted to say, is Graham Stringer. Graham is the Labour Member of Parliament for Blakely and Broughton, and it's good of you to fit us in. So the Prime Minister will host that press conference at 2 o'clock, Graham. Rachel Reeves said, this is a crisis exclusively made in Downing Street. Even you would admit that's nonsense, isn't it?
I don't think it is. I would put it slightly differently. I'd say that there is a world crisis caused by the invasion of Ukraine and the inflation caused by coming out of COVID. On top of that, the government made such a mess of their so-called mini budget that this country is in a worse position than any other advanced country, and that is made completely in Downing Street. This is an embarrassment to the United Kingdom, both the budget itself and what it has done to people with mortgages, people with debt. Interest rates have gone up, the pound has gone down, and now we see the government falling apart before our very eyes. Incidentally, I interpreted Kwasi's resignation letter rather differently than you did. I thought he'd had a barbed comment. He was basically saying, we've both pursuing the same policies, but I'm the sacrificial goat for this policy, but actually you are as responsible for the mess we're in as I am. So I didn't think it was quite as emollient as you did.
Maybe I'm too forgiving, Graham, but I'll certainly. I'm grateful to you for raising that point, and I will discuss it with my panel in just a moment. Let me ask you another question, and you've been good enough to come onto my programmes at the weekend occasionally. We've talked about this. I know that Sir Keir and Rachel have been crystal clear that they wanted the windfall tax on the big profits that the energy companies have made, and the government acceded to that to all intents and purposes. But apart from the top rate of tax, which is now gone, the bulk of this budget that Rachel is so critical of, you're nodding through.
Well, I think it is always a mistake for oppositions to nail their colours to a particular mast on a particular budget, because the world changes very quickly and the opposition is not in control of it. I think it's probably a slight error to say we would have stuck with the 19 pence tax, because by the time we get to the general election, whenever it is, and I hope it's pretty quickly, that might be a commitment we can't keep, because the country's finances are in such a mess at the moment. So I take your point. I think we should stand back and say the government are making such a mess of things that really we will have to take a look at the books, as Harold Wilson used to say a long, long time ago, when we get into office.
Yeah, fascinating. But the way things are going, and all of my panel here was saying that none of us could remember a similarly crazy era where goodness knows what happens next. I mean, it is even conceivable that election will be sooner rather than October 24 or the spring of 25. You've got to be ready to go. And if we reflect back upon your party conference and a not unreasonable speech from Rachel and a not unreasonable speech from Sir Keir, the headlines from that will be, beyond more windfall tax, the nationalisation of the energy sector. British energy will be British owned. Rolling back the stones a wee bit there, aren't we?
Well, I think, as you said, the last time we had a discussion, there seems to be a change of atmosphere and tide in politics at the present time. And in the 1980s, the public, the own nationalised industries were not universally popular, partly because of bad service, partly because people were offered easy money by buying shares in those nationalised industries.
Sure.
But I think the performance of some of the privatised utilities, the water industry, electricity, has been so poor. The railways, you can't travel easily now between Manchester and London, has been so poor that I think the public are ready to take some of those utilities, some of those monopolies, back into public ownership. And I think that will be quite a popular policy. And if I can say one last thing, I think the government is in such a mess. Liz Truss has been behaving as though she's had a mandate from the electorate to change policies in such a dramatic way. I think the public have to be asked. And you would expect an opposition MP to say that. But I think the public want an election at the present time to help resolve what really are the issues before us, so we can get our country back onto an even keel, because we are an international laughingstock at the moment, as the chief executive of the IMF said in very diplomatic words, but she was saying the United Kingdom is financially a mess, and we don't expect that from the United Kingdom. So we need a general election as soon as possible.
Graham Stringer, it is genuinely always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for finding time for us this Friday afternoon.